And we're live. At least I hope we're live. All right, welcome everyone. We're here today. We're going to talk about Zoom video conferencing. I would assume that many of you, like myself, have gotten some experience with this over the last couple of days. I know at the high school we had a building-wide meeting on Zoom. I think I saw 73 people at a maximum on there at once in one meeting, so that was pretty hefty, pretty cool. And I am assuming that that's happening in other buildings as well. I know the admin have been pretty much in Zoom meetings constantly over the last couple of days as they meet with different groups and whatnot. So hopefully everybody's been able to get signed in and ready to go, at least start with that. And today we'll go over a whole bunch of other parts of Zoom video that will get you going with starting your own meetings, and hopefully ultimately being able to do this with some confidence with students. You may have noticed that it's just me today. Tammy has decided that it is the better idea to stay home and do the social distancing thing. So hopefully she can join us on the live stream. But we'll see where we go with this. So to begin with, we're going to talk about some streaming etiquette, and these are things that apply no matter where you're looking at, no matter whether you're using Google Hangouts or Zoom Video or anything else. So this is going to apply no matter what you're doing online with streaming video. To begin with, headphones are a great idea. You may have noticed in some of your meetings that sometimes you get sound feedback. The sound from your speakers gets picked up by your microphone, and it cycles and it gets kind of obnoxious. So headphones are a good idea. For the most part, it hasn't been a huge problem with Zoom video. I've noticed it from a couple of people in these conferences, but it hasn't been a big problem. So it may not be too much of a problem. Zoom video may be better at handling it than some others, but headphones might not be a bad idea. A quiet location. You're going to want to find a place in your house, in your office, whatever, where you can not be disturbed, where somebody watching TV in the background is not going to make a lot of noise or whatever. All of that stuff gets picked up on your microphone and can be kind of distracting for your audience. Good plan is to mute your mic when you aren't talking. I would suggest that you encourage your students and other meeting members to mute their mic and just turn it on when they're ready to talk. There's a feature in there, and we'll show this when we get there, to virtually raise your hand to speak. I've seen it work pretty well with a small enough group where people can just raise their hand in their video and wait to be called on. But if you have, probably more than like 5 or 6 people in a meeting, using that virtual hand raise is probably going to be the way to go. Let's see, longer than normal wait time. I have a hard time with this in class when I'm live with students. I tend to not wait long enough for them to answer a question to give them think time and whatnot. But it feels like it takes a little bit longer when you're doing the virtual meeting thing, the webcam chat thing. So be intentional. Maybe even set a little timer and say, hey, we're going to wait. I'll give you 30 seconds to think about it, and then ask questions. But it's going to take a little bit longer wait time doing things over video conference. There is the ability to do group chat versus private messages. Again, we'll show this when we get into the Zoom video part. There's the ability to send a private message just to one person, so not everybody else sees it. This is helpful when you have something that's really either shouldn't be seen by everybody else, or if somebody just has kind of a side question that they want to ask, and that shows up with a little private tag above it in the chat. And again, I'll show you what we're talking about when we get to the actual Zoom video app. From the video side of it, consider the lighting. In here, for this live stream, we've set up some extra lights and stuff. It usually takes more light than you think, and your camera is going to do, especially the little webcam that's on your Chromebook or MacBook or whatever device you're using. They're not very good. So, oh, I got a message. Hold on. I'm there now. So some people are saying they can't see me, but I've got people saying here that they see me. So tell them to go to my stream. There's a link in the email I sent last night. That link should work. Okay, anyway, back to where I was talking about. Lighting. Um, Consider your lighting. You might want to make sure you're in a spot where you turn on lights, whether it's the kitchen lights or your office lights. Maybe bring in an extra light to make sure the more light you have, the better your camera is going to do. These little laptop cams and webcams on your Chromebooks and whatnot, they don't do very well with low lighting. Um, Also, you want to make sure you're front lit. You want the light coming from this side rather than from behind you. So if you sit in front of a window and the window is got, especially if it's got bright sunlight outside, the camera's going to adjust for that light and leave you all dark in front. So you want to be facing those light sources rather than having them at your back. When it comes to screen sharing, if you're going to share your screen, your desktop, one of the things to consider is whether or not you're going to share your whole desktop versus just a window. When at all possible, my advice would be share a single window at a time. Um, if you share your whole desktop, then your viewers will see everything that's going on your desktop. And if somebody pops up a message, a notification pops up and says, what time are we meeting tomorrow, or whatever, or you get an email message, those pop-ups everybody else will see as well. So to avoid that, whenever possible, just share your window that you're working on, not the whole desktop. One of the things that I did just stumble across on my Chromebook, and Marcus, if you'll show my Chromebook real quick, if you go to the corner over here, there's a notifications toggle right here, and you can turn those on and off right there. So if you turn them off for a while, then you won't have to worry about them popping up on you while you're doing a live cast or a conference or whatever. All right, so those are just some things to think about in general when you're doing either a screencast or video conferencing, sharing your screen, audio considerations, all that kind of stuff. Let's move into, let me look at the question here. Let's see. Scott says some kids are having issues on Zoom, but Google Hangouts seems to work better on Chromebooks. Scott, I was a big proponent of Hangouts. I'm really liking Zoom, and it seems to be working fine on my end at the moment with Zoom. But if you just need a quick way to chat between two people, Hangouts is the easier way to go. It's really simple. There's not a lot of features to get in the way and stuff like that. So I would agree. The kids are probably more familiar and more comfortable with Hangouts. But when it comes to your like live class session, you want to talk with your whole class at one time, then I think Zoom is going to be the better way to go. Michelle says, please note if there's a different function for MacBooks with counselors and admin that have them. Yeah, the app looks different. I just ran into this today. I had set everything up for this live stream using my MacBook, and then I sat down to do this afternoon with my Chromebook and realized that the app looks very different on the Chromebook. So I will definitely point those out as we go along. Absolutely. Rebecca, can we share this with parents? Absolutely. It's on YouTube. Anybody in the world can watch it. So feel free to pass it along to parents or friends or other teachers, whatever you want. All right, so let's get into some settings here. Let me switch tabs and go here. Begin with, let me just go to the sign in thing real quick, and we'll do that. So Marcus, you'll switch to my desktop, please. If you go to zoom.us, and again, I'm going to assume most of you have already done this because we've been having conferences, video conferences and stuff, but just in case you haven't, if you go to zoom.us, right up here next to the big blue button, it says sign in. Click there, and you'll want to sign in with your Google account, and you want to make sure it's your work account, not your personal account. So I'm going to click my work account there, and it brings you into here. This should look the same for everybody, Mac, Chromebook, PC. Because it's on the web, it should be the same for everybody. So to begin with, let me go back to my notes here. So video settings. Let's see, under meetings, let's see, where did I go for that? again, I set this up last night on a Mac, and so things have changed just a little bit. All right. Hold on. All right, so let me go at it this way. I'm going to go over here to host a meeting, and I'm going to choose with video on. And when that pops up, now I'm gonna cancel out of this one. This just got me into the app for Chrome. The app on the Mac, for example, looks different. So when you open up the app, sign in with Google. You can join a meeting. I'm going to go up to the settings up here. And here I have the different settings that I can set for different things on video, audio, and other things. So to begin with, this mirror effect makes your screen look like a mirror, which is more comfortable for most people. So usually that's by default, that's enabled. You could uncheck that if you wanted to, but I would leave that one checked. Always show video preview during joining a meeting. That's there as well. Hide non-video participants. That's unchecked by default. If you had a lot of people, you might want to do that just to kind of clean things up. But again, I would probably leave that as the default there. Audio settings, automatically join audio by computer when joining a meeting. So it'll automatically add you with audio connected. You can also always mute the microphone when joining a session. That way you step into the meeting with your microphone muted. Again, if you've got some background noise or something like that going on, you might want to have that by default being off when you first go in. And then I like this automatically adjust microphone volume. So I would go ahead and check that. That's one that's off by default, but that's probably a good one to have. And it seems to do a pretty good job of adjusting the microphone volume for you automatically. Accessibility things here. What I want to point out here is there are keyboard shortcuts. These keyboard shortcuts are helpful. They're quick. There are ways to change them, but I wouldn't bother changing them. If you change them to something that's already used as a shortcut on your Chromebook, or like for example, if on your Chromebook Control-C copies text, if you changed one of these to Control-C, then you might have problems in the Zoom video trying to use that shortcut. So I would recommend not changing those. But here they are, so that you can see which they are and get used to using them if that makes life a little easier for you. Statistics, there isn't much to see there, and then the About tab. All right, so I apologize for you Mac folks. I didn't have a way to show my MacBook on the screen. I'm missing a dongle. Always missing a dongle for the MacBooks. If I can figure out how to get a dongle, maybe I'll come back and do another brief video with the MacBook screen so that people can see the settings and stuff there. Let me look at questions here. Sandy says tech support's working on a Zoom handout for students. Yes, I've seen the handout and they are working on that. I'm also looking at doing a video for students and parents, just a quick how-to to get in. Let's see. It's already here, blah, blah, blah. Yep. Okay, so there we go. That catches up questions a little bit there. I want to make sure that I am hitting all the things I wanted to hit. Virtual backgrounds. So in the settings, there is a place to do virtual backgrounds, and some people have done this, and it's really pretty cool. One thing to consider, though, it does take a bit of computer horsepower to do that. The virtual background is nice, not only because it's kind of cool, because you can have just about anything you want in the background and a picture, but it also allows you to do but it also hides whatever it is in your background. So if you're sitting in your office and you don't, you have family pictures on the wall or something like that that you don't want necessarily to show up in there, it basically does a virtual green screen behind you, and covers all of that stuff with another picture. Again, nice feature to have, but it does take some CPU, some processor power from your device. And typically speaking, a MacBook or a Chromebook are not really up to the task. Can you do it? Yeah. Is it going to be kind of weird? Maybe. Is it going to cause your device to heat up more than it should and maybe use more battery than it should? Yeah. And so you may run into some problems with it with those devices. So I'm not really going to recommend doing that unless you're working off of a desktop computer at home. So that's my take on the virtual backdrops. They're really cool looking though. Let's see, profile picture. So in your settings, under profile, so here I am in all the settings. There's you set up meetings and webinars and all. Under your profile, there is your picture up here, and it pulls your picture from your Gmail account, which for most of us is going to be fine, but you can certainly change that if you want to. There's a little button down here to change it. You can change it to anything you want. Keep in mind that your guests in your meeting are going to see that picture. So whatever picture you put in there, that's the picture that's going to pop up when your video feed is not there. Let's see what else we got. Keyboard shortcuts we talked about. All right, so let's get into hosting a meeting. So you don't actually have to have an account to join a meeting. So your students don't actually need to set up their own account to join one of your meetings. They just need a link to your meeting. You do need an account to host a meeting, to set up the meeting. So that's why we all have these school provided accounts. So to schedule a meeting, if you just want to, to just host a meeting, you can come up here in the upper right-hand corner, no matter what screen you're on in the Zoom website, and it says host meeting. Probably going to want to do it with video on, but you could choose video off if you wanted to. And that will jump you right into a meeting room. And then join with video, and boom, I'm into a meeting. To get people into it, you can just come down here in the bottom bar and invite people. So I think the easiest way to do this, if you're just doing a quick meeting with a couple of people, is to copy the URL and then paste that into a quick email, or you can just hit Gmail right here and it'll put all the information into an email and send it to them. If you're looking at doing this with your whole class, then I've got a little bit different procedure that you can go through that. And we'll talk about that when we talk about scheduling meetings in a few minutes. So anyway, you want to get that information to them one way or another. It'll give them a link and that they can go to that meeting. Notice this code up here, 342-219-754. You could go right to the Zoom front page, join a meeting, you type in that code and get right in. Again, don't even have to be logged in for that. So people could join, they could join my meeting right now, but I'm going to kill it here in just a second so I can show you some more settings. But in any case, that's the code that they need to join your meeting. So if you're just doing a quick meeting between a couple of people, that would be the way to do this, I think, is just click new meeting. Let me go back. I'll show that again. Right up here in the right-hand corner, it says host meeting. I would go there. So that's, again, the best way to go, I think, for quick meetings, just a couple of people kind of deal. Let me check questions, make sure people are okay. Students told sign up information. School laptop doesn't have enough power to do it. Yeah. Sandy says that is, I'm wondering if that is to do Zoom at all or to do the green screen effect. Not sure which, but I did run to on my Mac, which is new this year. On my Mac, I can't do the live backgrounds, the green screen thing. Cindy says, can I post a link on my district Google site page that my students could access for joining a meeting? Absolutely, but there's some caveats there, and I'll get to that in just a second. So hang tight on that, Sandy. We'll get to you on that. Melissa says, but just one-on-one, you recommend Hangouts. Yes, if it's a one-on-one meeting, I would recommend Hangouts, unless you have need of some of the other features in there. If you just need to talk to somebody real quick, I think Hangouts is just a lot simpler to do and quick and easy. So Sandy says, yeah, just the virtual background. Yeah, my MacBook doesn't do it either, so not surprised there. Okay. Where are we at in my notes? My tech guy says doing VFX work like that takes a lot of CPU and GPU power in order to decide what to green screen and what to not. So without a GPU, it isn't going to be able to do much. So yeah, without a graphics processor, and the MacBooks and the Chromebooks have built-in GPU on the processor on the chip, and it just isn't that powerful. So yeah, kind of stuck with that. All right, so let's take a look at scheduling a meeting. And if you go to in your profile and your setting stuff here on zoom.us, if you go to meetings, one of the things you can do is schedule a meeting. And this allows you to do some pretty cool stuff. So I'm going to click schedule meeting, and I'm going to name my meeting test meeting just because I can. My description, blah, 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 blah. And then in the next bit here, you can choose when that's going to be. I'll set it for 3 o'clock on Friday. The duration, it doesn't mean it's going to cut you off after an hour. This is just the duration that it puts it onto a calendar, which I'll show you in just a moment. You can make this a reoccurring meeting, which will be really important, I think, at least those of us at the high school. The plan right now is to have, I think, first and second period on Monday mornings at certain times, and third and fourth period at a certain time on Tuesdays, and so forth. So you could set up this meeting at those times and click reoccurring. It'll just put it on each week at that time. Registration, you can have them register for the class. I think that's an extra step that may not be necessary here. So I would leave that unchecked. Meeting ID, here's where I would use the personal meeting ID. So Zoom keeps calling it PMI, and pretty much every time I see PMI on their website, I have to go look up what it stands for again. But it stands for personal meeting ID. So this is a meeting room, a virtual meeting room that is yours and yours alone. And you can go back to that meeting room again and again and again. You can schedule meetings in that meeting room for all kinds of different times. So if you're going to meet with your students as a class, I would do that in the personal meeting room. That way they're coming to this same code every time. That'll make life a little bit easier and consistent for everybody. You can require a password. I think that might only be necessary if you're getting people that shouldn't show up in your meeting randomly showing up into your meeting. So I would uncheck that until it becomes a problem. If it becomes a problem, then go back and add a password. For video, by default, the host video starts out on. So you hosting the video, your video will be on for everybody to see by default. Participants, when they join, again, by default would be off. I'm not sure. I haven't really decided which way is the better way to go on this. I might just have it on. I'm saying this with a whole lot of caution. I'm not really sure. But I might just have it on so you didn't have to worry about students going, I don't know how to turn on my webcam and whatever. So I'm not sure there. I might have some more advice on that one later. But by default, it starts with off. They can always turn it on, and you can tell them how to do it. On audio, I would leave this for both. By and large, you're going to have computer audio because your students are going to be on a device joining the meeting. But it is possible for people to join by telephone and just on a landline and just talk to you on the phone. So that is a possibility for students and people joining your meetings as well. Under meeting options, enable join before host. I think this is a good one. That's there by default. However, just as much as I don't really want students in my classroom unsupervised before I get there, just because things can happen, I don't really want them in my virtual classroom before I get there either. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I'm going to leave the enable join before host, and then I'm going to enable a waiting room. So they'll be able to go log into the meeting and it'll put them in a virtual waiting room. And then when I start the meeting, I can bring them in. So I'm going to click enable waiting room for that. This mute participants on entry, again, this is kind of like the camera thing. It's probably a good idea to have their microphones just start out as muted and they can unmute them to talk as they need to. But I think we're just going to have to try that and see how it works out. But that's an option there that you can do. And then the others I would leave unchecked for the most part. This record the meeting automatically. You could check that and it just record it for you. But there's a way in the meeting itself to click record if you want to record it. On the recording piece, this is probably going to be an important thing for protections on both sides. If there becomes a question as to, somebody said this in a meeting or somebody did that in a meeting or, whatever. If that meeting is recorded and you have a recording of that meeting, that's just going to be extra protection for yourself. So I think that's a good idea. I think I would probably recommend if you're going to schedule a meeting with all of your students and whatnot, go ahead and record the meeting and just keep that anyway. And then, click save. And you can add it to your Google Calendar right here. So this has the meeting information and you click add to Google Calendar. And choose your school account, of course. Allow it to have access. All right, so here is, this is cool. I figured this out last night and I'm really pretty excited about this. This is your standard set up an appointment on Google Calendar page. And it's already automatically filled in all the time and date stuff. Notice down here in the comments, it gives all the information that needs to be there for people to join your meeting. Over here, you can add guests. Now, this is Google Calendar, so it's just like you normally do with Google Calendar when you add guests. But here's the cool thing. You can add your Google Classroom classes as a group. So I have, for example, my first period is Essentials of Physics. And when I start typing, it gives me these suggestions. Now, notice there is one here with Essentials of Physics with the buildings. I don't know specifically what that one's for, but I know when I tested it, that one did not work. It did not send a email invite to my students. So not that one, not the one with the little buildings, not the one that says Essentials of Physics teachers, but the one that just says Essentials of Physics. If I choose that one, now I have 26 guests because it will add all of those students from my Google Classroom. Now they have to be joined in your Google Classroom. So if you have a Google Classroom set up for your students already, you can add them all in one shot right there just by typing the name of the class. And if you have multiple periods, my second period class, same thing. I can choose Essentials of Physics there, and there's another 25 guests or whatever. So that I thought was really cool. I discovered that last night when I was going through things, trying to figure things out for this webcast. So hopefully you'll find that useful. Hopefully you already have students set up in a Google Classroom, and maybe the elementary schools aren't quite as far along there with Google Classroom or not. Maybe I don't know. But in any case, if you get them in a Google Classroom, you can add your classes as a group right there. I'm not going to click save here because I don't really want this to go out to my students at the moment. But you would click save and then it would automatically send an email invite to those students. And just like you normally see when you get a calendar invite, it says, are you going? Yes, no, or maybe. They'll get the same option and you'll be able to see who's responded that they're coming to that meeting that you set up. Okay, so I am going to get rid of that one because I don't want those notes to go out to students. Let me catch up with questions if there are any. Michelle says, record the meeting, plus if someone misses the meeting, they can watch the recording. That's a very good point. If you recorded that meeting, there are options when you record the meeting to have it either record in the cloud. In other words, zoom.us will hold the video of the meeting for you. I think I saw in there it only holds it for 30 days. So that may not be the best long-term option, but you can definitely save the recording of the video of the meeting to your local device. And so once you have that, you have the video, you can put it in your Google Drive, you can put a link to it on Google Classroom, you can share it out through email, however you want to. You can do it that way. So I would recommend, if you're going to record your meeting, go ahead and record it to your device, and then you have control over it. You can do whatever you want with it. Good point. Thanks, Michelle. Melissa says, counselors, we could have class meetings that way. You absolutely could. And apparently Zoom is robust enough to handle hundreds of people in a single meeting. And that's one of the advantages to having these accounts that the district has provided us, is that we can literally have hundreds of people in our meetings, and they're not limited to 40 minutes. Marina asks, can you add invites by groups you make in your Gmail contacts? Absolutely. So if I was an administrator at the high school, I would set up a group for each of my departments, and then when I wanted to invite the science department to a meeting, I could just start typing science and then invite that group, and I wouldn't have to go through and add them one by one. Counselors could do this with like all their seniors and create a seniors group. You know, you could do it any way you want, but yes, you can absolutely, if you create a group in your Gmail, you can invite groups that way. Sandy says, I heard the school accounts can have up to 300 in a meeting. I'm not sure of that number, but it's more than a couple hundred. So that should be enough. It gets to be a really big meeting otherwise. Sandy says, will those files be too big to email? The video file likely will be too big to email. If you're recording a meeting, I'm assuming you're referring to recording a meeting. Yes, that would likely be too big to just send as an email. That wouldn't be the most efficient way to do it anyway. The best option would be to put it into your Google Drive and then share it through Google Drive. Good question. All right, so let's see, where are we at now? Scheduled meetings, did all of that. All right, in the meeting controls, go through some of these. I'm going to open up a meeting. Just a quick one. Join with video. So down here at the bottom, and the toolbar down here hides. So if you don't see these tools when you're looking for them, you just got to move the cursor down there and wake it up a little bit. But just going from left to right, you have options. So the first one is the mute button. And if I click it and mute myself, then my microphone is not broadcasting out there. Next to it is this little up arrow. I can expand. There's some options. If you need to adjust audio settings, that's there. If you need to switch microphones, that's there as well. So you can choose different audio sources in a quick menu right there. Next to that is the video button. You can stop your video from going out. You will still be able to see others' videos. And notice that my video is replaced with my picture from my Gmail account. Again, just like with audio, there's a little up arrow next to it. You can get to some video settings there. And if I had more than one camera attached, which is unlikely, but if you had more than one camera attached, you could choose which camera is showing there. Next one over in the middle grouping is invite. You go to invite, showed this a little bit before, but you can choose to send an email, or you can copy that the URL or the invitation information and then just paste that into your Google Classroom as a post or into an email, however you want to get that information out to the people that are joining your meeting. Next one is share, and this shares your screen. When you click it, it'll give you options of what to share. So here I can choose to share the Zoom window, which would be kind of odd because we're already sharing the Zoom video with our groups. But you can choose other things like a web page or a document to share out, and that becomes what they're seeing. And then I can go ahead and go and do things on my screen. So if I'm trying to show something or demonstrate something for students or other people in my meeting, I can do that. And when I get done sharing, I can just click the stop share button up here at the top, and it goes back to showing them the video. Notice the little pop-up menu here next to it gives you options controlling sharing. So one of the things they've had, this is a huge caution. One of the things they've had issues with on Zoom when this whole thing blew up and lots of people started using Zoom all of a sudden, people were using it as kind of a broadcast, kind of like doing this live stream. Instead of doing it through YouTube, they were doing it through Zoom, and they would just post on their web page, on their Twitter account or whatever, the join information. And so anybody in the world could join. And if they leave it, so anybody can share their screens, then they would get some not nice people in there that would join the meeting, and then they would show whatever obnoxious, inappropriate things to everybody in the group. And it got to be so bad that these groups had to end their broadcast because it was completely taken over by some bad actors. So I don't think it's going to be that bad with our students, but the potential is there. So just be aware, if you allow them to share their screens, they can share whatever's on their screen. And there just needs to be some caution there. You just need to be aware of that. So I would always leave one participant can share at a time. Having lots of people share at the same time, I think would be confusing and obnoxious. I just can't come up with a way that would be helpful. Maybe somebody can. But anyway, one screen at a time is the default, but you can change it there if you want to. Chat across the bottom opens up this chat window on the side. You can type messages. You can choose to private message somebody here. Your students will be able to private message other people that are in the group there, and that will not show up to everybody. So that's a good way. If a student has a question and you don't want to answer back so everybody can see, you could just private message that student within the chat here. That way they get the information they need without having to share it with everybody or distract from what everybody else is doing. If they want to have a quick side conversation, they can do that without being there in the chat with everybody else seeing it. But just you should know that can go there. That can go on there. The record button does just what it says. It'll start recording. That record button turns to pause and stop, and it'll just keep recording everything that's going on in the meeting. So if you want to record the whole meeting, that's probably the way I would do it rather than the automatic thing. But if you're afraid you forget, then the setting in the setup might be a good way to go as well. And then the last piece here is breakout rooms, and this is really a subject for another show, and maybe it will be here. But this is a cool way that you can take all of the people that are in your meeting and automatically break them out into groups of a certain size. So you can choose to assign participants into 5 groups, and it will automatically take all the people that are there and evenly distribute them into 5 groups. They'll get their own separate little room to talk in for a period of time until you bring them back. And so you create those rooms. There's your breakout rooms. As the host, you can see those, and then you can delete as necessary. Maybe it doesn't fill up all the groups or whatever. You can assign participants to those. If somebody comes in late and you say, hey, why don't you join this group, you can assign them to that group. And they can have a side conversation. So maybe you tell them, hey, take 5 minutes and I want you to discuss this, and then we'll come back and talk about it as a whole group. So you can do that way. Anyway, that's kind of the quick and dirty of breakout rooms. Again, it's probably a whole episode in and of itself just on that. All right, so back to questions, see how we're doing here. Rebecca says, so the invitation goes to the students' email accounts? Yes, just like when you invite somebody to a meeting, they get an email with a yes, no, or maybe in the email. They get the same exact thing. Says, how would I invite a group using Skywords, Celia? So that I would take the email, the URL. Let me go back to, let's do this. I'm going to kill that End the meeting. That. Okay, so if I go to a meeting and join this video, right? And so here we are with invite, right? Copy the URL. URL has been copied. Now I can paste that anywhere I want. So I could paste it into an email. I could paste it into a post on Google Classroom. I could send it by text. You probably wouldn't want to text your students, but you could text other colleagues and say, hey, here's the code. You can put that URL literally anywhere you want. If you do put it on an open web page, realize that anybody that sees that web page could join your meeting. So Google Classroom is nice because the only people that are going to see that post in Google Classroom are your students that are joined to that classroom, or a para or an administrator that is joined to that classroom. So that's probably the better way to go, or send it directly to them by email. Let's see. Felicia says Apple has the option of sharing your AirPlay iPad. That would be interesting to see. Sharing my notes whiteboard as a screen. I would be interested in seeing that, Felicia. I might have to drag out my iPad again. It's been gathering dust for a while. Let's see. Rebecca said, yeah, we already answered that one. Can chat be turned off? So in the settings, I believe there is an option to not have chat. So yes, I think you could probably turn it off, but I don't, at least for me at the high school level, I don't think I would do that. But I believe there's a setting in the settings to turn that off. I'd have to look to be sure. No, Jennifer, I don't think there's a way to have chat and not have them private message. So yeah, you're just gonna have to have some trust there, I hope. Maybe they'll have some responsibility there to behave appropriately. If anyone knows of a Chromebook Zoom-friendly whiteboard app, Felicia, yes, there is a whiteboard built into Zoom that you can work on. I did try it with my mouse and trackpad, and drawing and writing with that, at least for me, was not pretty. If you had a touch screen on an iPad, I can see that working. And again, there's probably like a whole episode that we could do just that as well. But there is a whiteboard app built into it, which Jason just confirmed for me. Yes. Felicia, I see the when I go on my Mac, the app on the Mac has a big button that says whiteboard right there in the app. It doesn't have it in the Chromebook app, and the Chromebook app and the MacBook app totally different looking for whatever reason. Sandy Christensen says there's also a spot in the setup page to copy the invitation. Yep, you can drop that into an email message center. Yep. Rebecca found the setting to turn off chat. Yeah, I was pretty sure there is one. I'd have to dig around to find it myself. So, before I forget, last week we had a giveaway. We had two giveaways, 2 coffee cards. Jason and Donna won those, so congrats to them. We'll get those sent your way. I'll let Tammy know where to send those, and she'll get in touch with you guys to figure out how to get those to you. Hopefully sooner rather than later. I don't know. Maybe you want to wait until we get back in school to get those or not. But in either case, you definitely won those. So congrats on that. Any last questions before we get going here today? Get them up there and I'll answer them real quick. Otherwise, we're going to wrap up here in just a couple of minutes. Oh, Melissa says she checked and you can disable one-to-one messages for participants. Great. They can still chat in the group, but just not privately. That's awesome. So that answers that question. Good. All right, before you go, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you do so that you can get future updates and notifications. Hit the bell icon down below, and that will make sure you get notifications when we upload a new video or have a new live stream coming up. So make sure you do those things, and we'll figure out where we go from here. Hopefully again next week, Wednesday, 2 o'clock, we'll do the same thing and we'll see if we can't keep this going. So until then, thanks everybody.